name is Madison Motomezi. I use she, her pronouns, and I am an advisor in the Office of International Students and Scholars. If you have a DS 2019, I probably signed it on page 1. I think some of your names definitely sound familiar. So I'm really excited to be here and explain some of our employment information as it pertains to your J1 status. So I'll share my screen and we'll jump right in. So our overview contains 2 parts. The first part is on-campus employment, and the second part is academic training. Please note, all the information provided in this workshop is for J1 students pursuing an undergraduate, graduate degree, or participating in EAP. I'm not sure how likely this is, but if you happen to be a J1 scholar, like a research scholar or student intern, then this information is not for you. The first part we'll discuss is on-campus employment. So what is even considered on campus? If you are hired and employed by UCSB, if you have paid work, that means your check is coming from the university. You can also do unpaid work. That's totally fine. Common examples include, for EAP students, it would be more so the bottom 2 bullet points. So maybe you're a note taker for the Disabled Students Program, maybe you work in the dining hall, and it can also include participating in research studies for compensation. When are you eligible? Right now, as soon as you get to UCSB, you can apply for on-campus internship. The amount of work you can, the amount of hours you can work depends on where in the academic year we are. So if we are in fall, winter, or spring quarters, then you can work up to 20 hours per week total. During break periods, so that would be winter break, spring break, or summer break, you can work over 20 hours per week. And the reason I say it's a total aggregate of 20 hours is because this is across any job that you have. So let's say you work at a dining hall for 10 hours, and then you work as a note taker for DSP for 10 hours. That's a total of 20 hours per week, so that's okay for you to do during the academic year. What you would not be able to do is work any one job during the academic term for over 20 hours. So you could not do work at the dining hall for 30 hours a week during fall, winter, or spring. You also cannot have a combined hourly work amount that's over 20. So you could not be a DSP note taker for 15 hours and work at the dining hall for 10 hours, because that would be a total of 35 hours. So just remember, across all jobs, that's where the 20 hours maximum or minimum comes in. If you are hired on campus, you'll need the authorization. You'll log into UCSB Global, which is the OISS platform where you requested your DS 2019. You'll click on J1 Student Services and then the on-campus employment request. The processing time is 5 business days. And when your request is approved, you'll get a confirmation email and a employment verification letter. If you don't have a social security number yet, you can use the employment verification letter to apply for one at the Social Security Administration here in town. The most important thing is that you have the authorization prior to beginning work. In fact, working without prior authorization is a violation of your visa status. And so let's say you are hired by a dining hall today. That's all right, but you cannot show up to a shift and actually log time and start your work at the dining hall until after you've gotten your on-campus employment verification letter and approval from OISS. So using that same timeline, let's say you were hired by the dining hall today. I'd recommend going right into UCSB Global and submitting your request and letting your employer know in about 5 business days, I will be able to start working. I'm not able to start working until I have this authorization. You would need a new validation or on-campus authorization once your current one expires. They're valid for a maximum of 1 year. Or if you get a new job, so if you get a verification or an authorization for working at the dining hall, and then you start a new job as a DSP note taker, you would need to get another on-campus authorization. Your validation cannot exceed your DS 2019 program end date. So if you're an EAP student who is here for 2 quarters, fall and winter, your DS 2019 will be ending at the end of winter quarter, which I believe is March 18th. So you cannot work on campus for this validation past that end date. Okay. We are heading into part 2. I see there was a question though. Can students start working before they receive an SSN? So the answer from the immigration perspective is yes. It's our understanding that you need the SSN to get paid and file taxes. But I think it's possible some departments might have different rules. Maybe they want you to have the SSN before you start working. So I can only really speak to what our perspective's answer is, which is yes. Okay, part 2, academic training. This is another type of employment authorization. It allows you the opportunity to gain work experience in your field of study off campus. It allows you to continue your cultural exchange experience, and it occurs during or after your completion of your academic program, which is just the length of time you'll be participating in EAP. For this one, you are eligible after the first quarter of full-time enrollment at UCSB. So pretty sure all of us here have started their EAP programs this quarter. So the earliest you would be able to apply for academic training is next quarter for the winter. You can do as much academic training as you have time in your program. So the eligibility is equal to your program duration time. For example, if you're only in EAP for 1 quarter, that is 3 months time. So you have up to 3 months of academic training you can use. If you're in the EAP program for 2 quarters, that's 6 months of academic training. If you're in EAP for 3 quarters, then that's 9 months of academic training. We can ignore the bachelor's, master's, and doctorate portions of this slide because it does not apply. Okay, so this is what we just talked about, and we can keep going. You can do academic training, like I said, either before you've completed your program or after. And both of these designations have different terms. So pre-completion obviously suggests you have not yet completed your academic program. Again, you cannot work more than 20 hours per week during the academic term, and your work can exceed 20 hours per week during the breaks and summer. So this is similar to the whole on-campus employment rule too. You can be authorized up until your DS 2019 end date. So what this would look like is if you, for example, wish to participate in UCDC and you have an internship through UCDC, you would apply for academic training if your DS 2019 end date has not happened yet, and you could be approved up until then. So let's say you're here on your EAP program for fall, winter, and spring. Fall kind of comes and goes, and then winter, you're applying, and then spring, you are doing UCDC. Since your DS 2019 ends at the end of spring and your internship is happening before the end date, then you would be applying for pre-completion academic training. On the flip side is if you would like to stay in the US and work after your EAP program has completed, then you would apply for post-completion academic training. And this work actually must exceed 20 hours per week. The authorization will extend your DS 2019 end date, but it's really important not to let your DS 2019 expire. So using the same example, if you're a student who's here for fall, winter, and spring, when your DS 2019 expires at the end of spring on June 10th, 2022, you would have to apply for post-completion academic training before June 10, 2022. And then it would extend your DS 2019 past June 10th. You can work anywhere in the US as long as the job meets all of the academic training requirements. For pre-completion, you can work anywhere off campus, and then for post-completion, you can work either on or off campus. You also have to work at a job that relates to your major. This is more so a concern for our degree-seeking J students like doctoral, master students. For you all, as EAP students, you don't technically have a major for immigration purposes. In fact, if you look at the subject field code on your DS 2019, it will be the same for every single EAP student. And the CIP or SIP code is just a liberal studies, general studies code. So that means you can really participate in any internship opportunity as long as it's a bona fide internship that has some real academic components. So you would not be able to, for example, be a waiter or a waitress at a restaurant in town. It's not necessarily academic in nature. You aren't applying academic concepts, but we don't really see that as an issue a whole lot. Usually EAP students are applying for bona fide internships at other places in town or the UCDC program, for example. To apply, I would recommend first looking at all of the application requirements on the OISS website. If you just click on students, current students, J1 students, and then the employment section, that's where you will find all of the academic training information. And then after you've read through all of that, you can log into the UCSB Global platform and submit the academic training request. It is not currently on UCSB Global, but we're still transitioning the old paper forms into the e-forms, but it will be there by the end of December, which works out fine because the earliest you all could apply is winter quarter anyways. The processing time is 10 business days, and you'll get an email confirmation once it's been approved. A new DS 2019 showing the authorization will be provided to you along with the authorization letter. And again, similar to the on-campus employment authorization, you must have the authorization prior to beginning work. The only exception, I'll talk about this now. The only exception to the previous 20 hours per week rule during the academic term is for the UCDC program. It's my understanding that those internships are usually like 32 hours per week, and that is the only case in which you can apply for pre-completion academic training and work over 20 hours per week. If you're not participating in that program, if you're just doing, let's say, an internship at the bank in an accounting role, then you would be limited to the 20 hours per week for pre-completion during fall, winter, or spring. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. Okay, reporting requirements. So at this point, you've been approved for academic training. You still, just like you usually have to, update your address in UCSB Global within 10 days of moving, and then contact OISS if you change your name, lose the employment, if you want to end the training early, if you want to extend it, add another, or change employers. And then lastly, there is an academic training final evaluation form that you must fill out and send to OISS within 30 days after completing that training. Someone else has asked, how can we get a social security number? Sure, you can see this information on our website, but the first thing you would do is get a job, either on campus or as a part of academic training, and then that will give you an employment authorization letter, which you will take to the Social Security Administration. Is there a deadline for students to sign up for academic training for winter 2022? Yes, so if you work sort of backwards, the deadline would be 10 business days before you wish to start your work, because you have to have the authorization completed and approved before you actually started working at whatever job you wish to work at. And then if you're applying for post-completion academic training, you must also submit the application at least 10 business days before your DS 2019 expires. You never want to just let it expire if you hope to stay longer. Okay, my DS 2019 expires on December 10. What was the part about forms not being up until the end of December? Will it be possible to apply by December 10? Yes, it should be possible to apply. If they're not up by then, you can just email OISS at our general inbox, and we can definitely figure out how you can apply. It shouldn't be a barrier for you. Hello, I did not get the difference between the academic training and the internship. Can you explain it again, please? Sure. So academic training is the employment authorization that you need to lawfully engage in a work opportunity. So the internship is the job, and the academic training is the authorization that allows you to lawfully work that job. And the academic training piece is what you apply to OISS for. Other questions? If you have them, you can refer to our website. You can email OISS. And then also on our student advising website, we have all of our advisor scheduling appointment links for Shoreline. So you can just go there and schedule an appointment with me if you have additional questions, and let us know. Oh, there's one more question. Do you know if an American bank account is required for on-campus jobs? Oh, that I'm not sure about. Yeah, I'm not sure. You could check with your whomever you get hired by, or you can ask them before you apply. Is it possible to go to the OISS office in person? Yes, we are open. We are open every day from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. If you click on my Shoreline appointment scheduler, you can choose either a Zoom appointment or an in-person, like in the office appointment. Or you can just come by if you have a couple quick questions. I would say if you have a lot of questions, then definitely schedule an appointment, because when we're helping you at the front desk, it's more so just to be like answering quick questions. But yeah, we're here. How do we find an on-campus job? That is a great segue. Our colleagues from the Career Services Center will say more about that later. Great question.
Great. So hold on one second while I share my screen and go from there. Okay. I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Joanne Villanueva Salvador. I am the Associate Director at Career Services, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. And I'm here to sort of just give you some really great kind of navigating our website and also showcasing some key resources that I think that it would be helpful in terms of helping to find either jobs or internship opportunities pre and post completion. So the first place that I wanted to show you is our website, which is career.ucsb.edu. And I'm going to kind of navigate through 4 different areas: gain experience, get hired, career paths, and communities. And then I will show at the end a couple of resources specifically that I think would be supportive as you do your search for jobs and internships. So the first place that I would want to showcase is our website, a section called Gain Experience. And so here you'll notice that there are certain strategies that you can consider when you are looking to find different types of experiences. And if you look on the left-hand side of our website, one of the things is our best tips and strategies. What to look for in an experience is something to kind of look at in terms of looking at the position titles and the responsibilities that you were doing, the initial training that might be involved, the new skill sets that you might be developing, as well as the connections that you're going to be building at these types of experiences. So that is one section that I would highly recommend in terms of taking a peek at as you're trying to gain experience during your stay here at UCSB. The other thing I also wanted to showcase too, along with our popular one, is with regards to internships, but please check out the different types of experiences that you can engage in, such as student jobs, research, and extracurricular activities. The second section of our website that I sort of wanted to showcase is with regards to our Get Hired section. This particular area, I think, is really helpful in terms of helping students understand how to write sort of effective resumes and cover letters for US employers, which may look very different from your home country. So if you take a peek here at the Get Hired section, there is a section called Resumes. And once again, if you look on the left-hand side, there are tips on how to create a resume, the different sections within a resume, as well as providing some sample examples for different resumes based upon our standards. The other section I also wanted to point out is with regards to cover letters. And so I'm not quite sure if for the students in attendance today, if you've ever written a cover letter, but if you haven't, here is a section regarding writing cover letters. And it is important to understand that writing cover letters is a great way for applicants to sort of explain their interest in applying for positions that they're interested in. And it allows the students to kind of highlight what your skills and your qualifications are as it relates to the positions that you're applying to. Other section that I wanted to highlight is with regards to LinkedIn. This is a great way for students, a great tool for networking, and provides tips on how to sort of build your profile as you might be considering some jobs or internships with various employers. They might check out your LinkedIn to see if you have a LinkedIn profile. So this is a great tool to be able to use to highlight and summarize your achievements, your accomplishments, and the different experiences that you've had thus far. And then lastly, I wanted to say, with regards to your resume and your cover letters, it's actually interesting. The resumes and cover letters are part of your application documents. And it's important to say that those pieces of the application help secure your opportunity to potentially interview for that position. But actually, with regards to interviewing is actually what helps land you that either internship or that job that you're looking at. So I think that one of the things to kind of look at is, here are our best tips on how to prepare for an interview. So you'll see how to prepare for your interview, things to be anticipating on key questions, just being able to prepare for upcoming interviews for when you go after that search that you're looking at. So I've kind of gone over the gain experience section, the get hired section. The third section that I wanted to highlight on our page is called career paths. And with the career paths, I just sort of wanted to say, I think it's a great way for students to kind of understand areas or industries that you might want to work in. And there are 6 different career paths that are available to kind of explore. And counselors have created what are considered to be career guides to provide advice in these different areas. So for instance, if you were interested in pursuing either a job or an internship in business and entrepreneurship, you can click on this particular career path. And you'll notice that here is the counselor that is oversees that particular area. And here are 2 potential guides that are available in terms of exploring. One is dedicated toward accounting and the other one is dedicated toward finance. So there are all of these different sections that are in there to help get you familiar with these various career paths. The final section that I wanted to kind of showcase in regards to our website is communities. And you'll notice that there are all these various communities that we help support here at UCSB. And the one section that I wanted to highlight is with regards to international. And if you look here and you scroll down a little bit, there are all of these various tips that are available in terms of helping international students. For instance, in the gain experience section, it helps you understand the different types of experience that are available both on and off campus. So there is types of experience to consider on campus, types of experiences to kind of highlight off campus. In addition to that, if you click on this section under the international students, you'll notice that there's a get hired section. And there are things such as tips on frequently asked questions when you're applying for job applications. So this is kind of interesting to kind of look at what are the best places to look for positions, what are other strategies or resources that can help me find employment. So these are really great sections specifically dedicated toward our best tips for supporting the job search process for international students. Okay, up at the top, I wanted to showcase really quickly, right here, if you look under on our website, it is called Toolkit. And the 2 resources that I sort of wanted to highlight, one will be GoinGlobal and the second will be HandShake. So I'll kind of showcase this first one here. And GoinGlobal has really great resources that I feel is helpful, and we specifically purchased this subscription on behalf of supporting the needs of international students. And so one of the things I wanted to highlight is right here under career guides. If you look under US City Career Guides, for instance, these are great resources for students to sort of look at in terms of if you're unfamiliar with a particular city or and looking for a job or an internship. These are great guides to help kind of understand what it is like to work in a particular city within the United States. And for instance, I just want to showcase, like, if you're not familiar with working in Austin, Texas, right? You can look and see here are various resources that are featured by GoinGlobal. The 2 areas that I sort of like is finding a job. And if you click here, job search resources, these are tailored to the different cities within the US. And maybe if you're interested specifically working for nonprofits or NGOs, here are some additional resources. If you're not familiar with the city, I actually kind of like this in terms of living there, and you can get kind of a city overview and cultural advice about living in those US cities. So if you go now to the next tab on Going Global, if you click on jobs right here, this is kind of interesting. You can look for jobs in regards to keying in a keyword and then selecting United States. You can look for all jobs or remote jobs. So let's just say hypothetically, if I wanted to look for accounting and I was interested in working, I wanted to see what positions were available currently within the United States, you can click on this and you can hit search. And this actually kind of does a spider web and indicates and finds the different opportunities that are based upon your keyword search and within the United States. And you can click on these various opportunities to see what is currently available for opportunities within the US. And the last thing I wanted to just kind of showcase with in terms of Going Global is going back to the career guides here and going to this particular section called Career News. I find this interesting because these are great articles from an international standpoint in terms of what's happening in terms of what's happening in job search or trends. And so you can kind of look at the career news and look at the job search, the employment outlook, or cultural advice. And so these are recent articles that are being published by Going Global to just sort of help give a pulse as to what's going on in the hiring process. The last area that I sort of wanted to showcase in terms of an additional tool is with regards to HandShake. And HandShake is a job internship database specifically for UCSB students. And how you would log in is going onto our website. And there is a login on the upper top portion of our website that says HandShake login students. And you would log in with your UCSB net ID and password. Once you get in, this is what the home page would look like. And I wanted to sort of showcase couple of items, information here that's available through HandShake. First one that I wanted to showcase is with regards to jobs. So if you click on this right here, and there are different ways. So right now there's over 24,000 different jobs and internship opportunities. And this is a great way to sort of look for using all filters here. And let's just say that you were interested in an internship. Then you can, there's a field in which you could look at work authorization. So will sponsor, it doesn't require a US work visa. So you can click on that. And then you can see the results that come up. And so these are open positions that are for an internship within this particular one is a data science, tells you the application, when it's happening. This actual position is actually accepting remote applicants. And then this particular button will tell you how to apply. So typically different positions will require either a resume, a cover letter, or sometimes they will ask for different pieces of samples of your work through a portfolio or a writing sample. So these are the ways in which you can look for both internships, on-campus jobs. You could search by location. It typically will tell you what the job entails, and so you can read through the job description. So these are ways in which you can look for both jobs on campus, off campus, as well as internship opportunities. The second area I wanted to feature in regards to HandShake is with regards to our events. And if you look here, there are filters available. So if you wanted to see which workshops were being offered on our by career services, here are the remaining ones for the fall. These are typically our workshops are focused on professional development skills. So upcoming with regards to LinkedIn or keys to interview success are things you can check out with regards to our workshops. Another feature that I sort of wanted to showcase with regards to events is with clicking on virtual sessions. So if you look here, these are virtual sessions in which employers are coming virtually to talk about their company. They typically will not only talk about what it's like to work for their company, but there are also highlighting the different opportunities that are available, whether it's a job opportunity or internships. So for instance, if you look here, if you're interested for working for Morgan Stanley, you can technically RSVP for these different sessions that are available and find out more information about upcoming opportunities. And then the last thing I just wanted to feature for those that might be interested is with regards to career fairs. And so just FYI, typically we do offer a career and internship fair at least once a quarter. We had specifically 3 career and internship fairs that were available this quarter. And so next quarter we will have a fair that will be coming. And this is where you would find that information available here. All right, and then the final piece that I sort of wanted to showcase it was with regards to, as I mentioned before, here's the place where you would log in, upper right hand side, HandShake, and this is where the student login would be. And then the final thing that I wanted to showcase is with regards to the services, the direct services that we provide students. And if you go here, I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. The first thing I wanted to highlight is, as I mentioned before, it is important as you're applying for jobs and internships, your application process will typically include either a resume and or a cover letter. And so we do have a process, a service that's called document review. And so ideally, if you do have a resume for submission, you can go ahead and submit that online here. And there's an online platform called VMock, and it can provide you with automatic feedback on your resume, and then you can request for additional feedback as well if you so desire. And then in addition to that, we do offer an online critiques for cover letters, and that is using our Google platform. As I mentioned in the very beginning, it is important that as you're preparing for the job and internship application search, the next step of once you've submitted your resume or cover letter is preparing for interviewing. And so we do have a particular interview skills service available to students. And you can go ahead and log into Big Interview, lots of different opportunities available to understand lessons to be learning, tips on how to strategically be successful in upcoming interviews. One of the things that we do have a feature that's available, you can submit a practice assignment and receive feedback from us on your your answers to sample questions. And you can get feedback from us for your interviews that you submit via video. And then the final thing I just wanted to say is with regards to any type of additional questions that you might have. I know I went through a lot of different sections within our website and the toolkit with regards to GoinGlobal and HandShake. So if you do have any specific quick, like 10 to 20 minute sessions are available through our career peer advising. We do offer both drop-in, which is you can either walk in or you can have a virtual session. Those hours for our drop-ins are Monday through Friday, 9 to 4 p.m. And then if you would like, you can have a pre-scheduled appointment. You could request for these appointments 24 hours in advance. And that is also available in person or virtual as well. And those hours are Monday through Friday, 11 to 3. Our building is actually located, we share a building, we're in building 599. We share share space with counseling and psychological services, and our building is diagonal across from Stork Tower. We are the pink and green building closest to the HSSB building as well. So there you go for now. Those are the various things that I just wanted to share with the students. And I wanted, if there are any questions, I am here to answer any questions and go from there. So the question is something about what website should I check the most? And then I would defer to Maddie about what visa would I need. Maddie, I'll defer that question, that second half of the question to you. But I would just say with regards to looking for internship opportunities, I would say the strategy is to look at various resources. That's why I had showcased different sections on our website, different resources using both GoinGlobal, using HandShake. It depends also on your industry. So if there are more specific questions after doing initial search, you can go ahead and drop in to our building and we can try to help kind of guide you through that. But I would say there is not just one place to go when you're looking for either jobs or internships. I think it's a multiple prong approach to do.
Yeah, and then for the visa question, you already have the J1 visa. And so that's the current visa you're in the US that you were admitted on. And so you would only need to get an additional work authorization. And if it's after you've graduated, it would be post-completion academic training. In the future, if you wanted to change visa types, then you would have to leave the US and come back to do work. So you might hear things like an H-1B, a working visa. You would not be applying for that right now if you just wanted to do post-completion academic training, which is a benefit of your J-1 visa.
As I had mentioned, under the gain experience section on our website, there are strategies and how to do the search. So there are various resources such as indeed.com, searching on LinkedIn. So there are specific resources that are listed under our gain experience section beyond HandShake. And I think it also depends on the industry that you're looking at. So that is also something that maybe we can do better assist if you have an idea of what you're looking for. But initially, I would say check out our gain experience section, and there are search strategies there, a whole bunch of resources that are available to kind of check out.
Awesome. Hello, everybody. My name is Elizabeth Vasquez, and I'm going to go ahead and get my presentation going, share my screen. Okay. All right, so my name is Elizabeth Vasquez. As I mentioned, I am the program advisor for the Capital Internship Program known as UCDC and UC Sacramento. So what are UCDC or what is UCDC and UC Sacramento, and what do they offer students? So UCDC and UC Sacramento are academic programs where you are able to live, learn, and intern in either the state capital of Sacramento or on the East Coast of our national capital in Washington, D.C. So you are able to intern for academic unit. You are also able to gain hands-on professional skills and experience. For both DC and Sacramento, they offer many different internship opportunities. So for a lot of students, this is really an opportunity for students to test drive a career or to test drive that major, right? Or to test drive a different interest that you might have. Let's say you are a sociology major, but you're very interested in international politics or something to that effect, or even vice versa. This is an opportunity for you to kind of scratch that itch and see if you are very much interested in it, or at worst, you're not interested in it, and that's still a win. For the Capital Internship Program on both fronts of DC and Sacramento, you will have UC staff guiding you throughout the entire process from start to finish. So we really do make sure that you have support the entire time because it's a UC program. So you are very much your student from start to finish, and no matter where you choose to go, DC or Sacramento. This is also an opportunity for students to gain professional and development networking opportunities for students. So again, as I mentioned earlier, you will be interning at a different or at a location or an organization in either DC or Sacramento. And this is really an opportunity for students to network. What we find sometimes that students end up doing is that they will, for example, intern in DC and they do really well and they make connections and so on and so forth. And then by the time they graduate from UC Santa Barbara, they end up flying back and already having that locked in job offer, right? So their internship experience, sometimes it even defaults into an actual job and, long-term career. So what courses are offered? So there are two different programs, as I mentioned, UCDC and UC Sacramento. So for UCDC between the two programs is the more popular between the two among students. We see that it's usually because it's more so on the East Coast. So a lot of students have never maybe even been to the East Coast, so they really want to experience that. For UCDC, the way that it would work is you take one core seminar class for about 3 hours each week. And that one core seminar class is 4 upper division units. And then you would take your internship. Your internship is going to be 32 hours a week, upwards to 32 hours a week. And that internship experience is not a class, it's an experience. And it is 8 upper division units as to what you will receive for it on our campus. So as you can see, if you total up the 8 and 4, you will be enrolled full-time at 12 units. So if you are a financial aid recipient in any way, shape, or form, it will directly translate over. You also have the opportunity to take an elective course. That elective course will also be 4 upper division units, and they vary by quarter. As far as what the core seminar classes are in DC, because I'm looking at the left-hand side, they very much are politically charged because of the nature of it being in Washington, DC. You'll find that a lot of the core seminar classes are very much in the political field. So there are classes in the subject area of Congress, of international development, international policy, focus on media, and Supreme Court as well. So what we tell students is that if none of those courses pique your interest or none of those subject areas, we would encourage you to consider the general research class. So oftentimes what students will do is if none of those classes kind of align with what they would like to learn about or doesn't really fit into their grand scheme of their academic plan, they'll opt in for that general research class. And again, you would choose one out of all of the core seminar classes that are offered to you. And they do vary by quarter as well. So I didn't list them on the screen, but generally they are in this realm. And so the UCDC program also runs throughout the entire academic school year from fall, winter, and spring quarter to also including the spring quarter. However, including the summer quarter. However, the summer quarter does not have that academic seminar component. It is only the internship, okay? Only the internship. The way that the internship process will look like is that you have to secure your own. So as I mentioned, you have support the entire time. If you are admitted into the program, you will get access to our UCDC database. And that database will update weekly with new postings and new openings from local organizations and partnerships that we already have established. And so that way students can apply to them and then hopefully land interviews and then hopefully long-term some offers. We usually don't have any problem securing internships for students. It hasn't happened. Our staff in DC as well as our staff here on campus really do a good job of helping you apply, making sure you have a good kind of repertoire of lists that you're going to be applying to, lists of organizations, and so on and so forth. But ultimately, it is totally up to the student themselves to secure the internship. And so whereas for UC Sacramento, a couple of different key differences. For UC Sacramento, you have to take a full course curriculum. So what that looks like is you take several courses as opposed to just the one in DC. For UC Sacramento, oops, let me move oh my goodness. Sorry, give me 1 second, move my cursor. For UC Sacramento, you take the internship component, as I mentioned, for 5 upper division units, and then you have the research and design method class for 4 upper division units, as well as the California Politics and Policy Seminar. So for UC Sacramento, all of these classes are already locked in for you. You don't get to pick. So there is that difference. And so you do have multiple classes. The internship will usually be about 24 hours or less a week. So as you can see, one of the biggest differences is that UCDC really puts the emphasis on that experiential learning, right? Really emphasizes the internship component because you intern for 32 hours. Whereas for UC Sacramento, you intern for about 24 hours. So they still very much put a heavy emphasis on the coursework. For UC Sacramento, they also have mandatory on Wednesday evenings, mandatory knowledge curriculum and speaker series. So every Wednesday, you will either have a speaker from a legislature or from a different department in one of their key organizations who come in and kind of share a little bit about their work and how they came to be in their work and their field and so on and so forth. So it's just an opportunity for students to be exposed to different career opportunities. But that is all part of the program and absolutely mandatory for UC Sacramento. So where can students intern? For UCDC, because of its location in Washington, DC, there are some very big name organizations that we partner with. I like to mention to a lot of students, what's the difference between me getting an internship here in Santa Barbara versus UCDC versus UC Sacramento? The difference is the location. Santa Barbara is a great and wonderful place to be. And for many of you guys, it's your only time here. So we totally understand and respect that. But you are limited in the city of Santa Barbara and our surrounding county. That being said, the bigger the city, the more opportunities, right? Santa Barbara is a small city, whereas Sacramento and DC are much larger cities. So there's more organizations that we partner with, more opportunity to intern. For UCDC, some of the big names that we partner with are NPR, the National Geographic Museum, the Brookings Institute, NASA, the US Senate, the Department of State, the US Department of Environmental Agency. We also have students interning at CNN, as well as the White House. So there are some that are obviously more difficult than others, but rest assured, a lot of our students have already participated in every single one of these organizations in the past. Whereas for UC Sacramento, a couple of different internships. For UC Sacramento, you have different categories to choose from. So you could intern from anywhere in the California Department of Education, as well as the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, I believe, the Cal Chamber, the city as well as the state Senate. So a couple of different opportunities. In contrast to the UCDC program, you are not responsible for securing your own internship. It's a completely different process for UC Sacramento. So you heard me talk about UCDC, where students have to secure their own internship, but they have they have support throughout the entire process. Whereas for UC Sacramento, it's a little bit different in that it's a matchmaking process, is how I like to picture it. So what that means is if you apply to the program and you are admitted into the program, based off of what your application is, which includes a resume, the associate director of the UC Sacramento program in Sacramento will call you. You'll arrange a phone call for about 30 minutes to an hour, where they will get to know you a little bit more in depth. And so they'll ask you questions about, what kind of career you'd like to pursue, what kind of skills do you have that maybe you did not list on your resume, and so on and so forth. So based off of the conversation and based off of the application itself, they will matchmake you to a certain agency in which you will contact them to schedule an interview, and hopefully the interview will go well and you'll have that job offer. But you pretty much don't have to directly apply. It is already kind of embedded in there for you. Whereas UCDC, as I mentioned, you do have to secure it on your own. So now, where do students live? So for UCDC, we're halfway, guys, don't worry. For UCDC, you will be living in fully furnished apartments with 24-hour security on site, as well as on-site laundry. And as I mentioned, it is a UC program, so you will be living with other UC students, meaning you're going to be sharing that apartment with students from either, and it could be anybody from UCLA to UC Berkeley to Riverside to other Santa Barbara students and so on and so forth. And this actual UC Washington Center building where you guys are living is going to be the same building in which you will be taking your classes. It's a 13-story building, so the first 2 levels is where they have the classrooms. And so for UCDC, this actual building, the UC Washington Center, both where you will be taking that class and both where you will be living, is about 6 blocks from the White House. So naturally, it is very secure. And that's really why we emphasize that 24-hour security. The UCDC program fully recognizes that you guys are adults coming into the setting and now having to kind of live in a apartment style housing. And so they're not there to police you of when you're coming in and out. They're just there to double check and to make sure that, they know who's coming in, and that they're not there to like set curfews or anything like that. They're just, because of the nature of us being 6 blocks away from the White House, they really want to make sure everything is safe and secure. And there's also a metro nearby. So upon arriving to UCDC, if you are admitted, you will have a full access metro card to get you from point A to point B all around the city, including to your internship. So if your internship is a little bit far away, it'll be able to transport you there, as opposed to having to take a taxi or an Uber and so on and so forth. And that metro card is absolutely included in the cost and no charge to you. And as for UC Sacramento, it's a little bit different. So for UC Sacramento, the housing is not guaranteed, nor is it required per se. So for UC Sacramento, the way that the housing works is on a first come, first served basis. So that being said, if you are admitted, the second you are admitted, you should jump into finding that housing. UC Sacramento has limited housing. So that's why it's on that first come, first served basis. But what students oftentimes end up doing is that they end up subleasing from other UC students at our Davis campus. And then from there commuting to the UC Sacramento Center. So there is a little bit of a delay in getting from the UC Sacramento Center into your housing and vice versa. So if you are admitted into UC Sac, I would really encourage you guys to jump onto that housing option and try to secure that. Okay, moving into our financial aid and scholarships. So our program cost of attendance for UCDC overall is slightly more expensive than being on campus. And for UC Sacramento, it is slightly less expensive than being on campus at UCSB. So that being said, we do very much have scholarships possible for you guys to apply to. And a lot of students will end up, a lot of students have different opportunities for scholarships to mitigate the cost. And to mitigate the cost. And so that way, it'll bring down the cost to kind of be almost the same as being on our campus at UCSB. For UC Sacramento, if you have any family or friends or relatives in the Sacramento area, that is another option to kind of cut down those costs. It's already a little bit less expensive than being in Santa Barbara, but it could be even less expensive if you have that option for you. So there is that as well. I do want to highlight that there are one-time expenses, especially for UCDC. One-time expenses as in buying a comforter or buying some sheets if you don't want to pack things like that in your luggage. And so that is all included into this budget. By no means are all of these items here fixed. They are estimates of what we've seen and heard from students, kind of anecdotally. What is fixed for DC is the housing. So rest assured, as international students, whatever you are paying on our campus currently in terms of tuition and fees will be exactly the same for both UCDC and UC Sacramento. It will not fluctuate. What will fluctuate is your cost of living, meaning housing, your books, and things like that. And the housing for DC is fixed on the left-hand side, as you can see. Okay, so who is eligible? So in order to be eligible to participate in either DC or Sacramento, you have to have a minimum 3.0 GPA or above. Because we are that academic program, we do place an emphasis on that. However, if you are on the cusp of meeting maybe a 2.9 GPA, come talk to me and we can try to sort something out. You can also be of any major. So it's not limited to certain majors. UCDC and UC Sac are open to students of all majors, and there are internships for students of all majors as well. You do, however, need to be in junior or senior standing for both DC and Sacramento. However, for UC Sacramento, they do allow for some sophomores with a B average to apply. You also are, if you are a transfer student or a DACA student, or in your case, an international student, you are very much eligible to apply and participate in this program as well. So I know that we were having some questions in the chat about internships. this is a great opportunity for students to get that internship experience and to also see more of the United States. So application and deadlines. All right. So for the UCDC program, we have our deadline coming up for our spring quarter for students interested in going for the springtime. I encourage you to apply now. Our deadline is December 3rd. As far as summer, I know on the screen it says it's to be determined as far as the deadlines, but on our website, it is listed as January 24th. So I do have to make an edit on this PowerPoint, which I'm now seeing. And for UC Sacramento, their deadlines are very much ahead of the UCDC deadlines. So unfortunately, you are no longer able to apply for our winter or spring quarter. However, you are still able to apply to our summer quarter. And their deadline is December 2nd. Okay, December 2nd. And if you're interested in applying, you can always check out our website or also check out our link tree. And I will have a QR code towards the end for you guys to scan and see more information overall. So the student perspective. All right, so these are some students that have been interning in DC and Sacramento. As you can see on the top left, these are one of the speaker series and night forums that I mentioned briefly at the beginning of the presentation. The bottom left picture are some students is an entire cohort of a quarter in front of the UC Washington Center in DC. And then on the far right, we have some students a student who was interning and broadcasting. And please note, we don't have a broadcasting major here on our campus, but the student really wanted to kind of dive in and scratch that itch and see if this was going to be a career for them. And so she interned at MSNBC and was able to kind of give a brief segment in the news. On the left-hand side, you can see students taking the Metro, really taking advantage of that Metro card that I mentioned as well. The top right is the entire UCDC cohort from the past year. So this is across all the UC campuses, all of the students in front of the White House, because UCDC also does provide some field trips to students or to the cohort. I believe this time around, we do currently have students in DC right now for a fall quarter, and they went to a Washington Nationals baseball game altogether. And then in the bottom, you see some students in front of Kamala Harris, which is now our Vice President of the United States, which is really wonderful. So again, there are some really great opportunities that UCDC and both UC Sacramento offer to students. And this is actual testimony of it, right? And I know this was a very, very general and brief overview for a lot of you, or maybe it was the first time you guys are hearing this information. So I do very much encourage you guys to scan our QR code. The QR code will take you to our link tree, which has our newsletter with more information, as well as our office hours, as well as our Friday info session. So if you want to know more about the program, either program in depth, I encourage you guys to please join our Friday 1 o'clock info sessions. Our info sessions are all virtual every single Friday at 1, as I mentioned, and our peer advisor, who is a UCDC alumni, as well as a UCDC admitted, or UC Sacramento admitted student, participated in the program. So she's actually giving her own testimonial as well while she's giving these presentations. So it's a really great opportunity for a lot of students. Please make the most of your time at our campus. We have lots of opportunities for you all. And my name is Elizabeth Vasquez, and I am the program advisor, and I also host office hours on Mondays from 10 to 12, as well as Thursdays from 1 to 3. So this Thursday, you can go ahead and make an appointment with me through our QA system. And if you scan the QR code, it'll also take you to our website where you can find that information as to how to contact me. But you can also reach me via email through the email listed on the screen. And I don't know if Megan mentioned in the beginning, but we are located in 2431 South Hall, which is the same location as our study abroad office, our EAP office. And lastly, please follow us on social media because we do post very regularly and post some updates as well. And I know that was a lot. I'm just very worried that my Wi-Fi is going to cut out again. So I want to take the opportunity I'm going to provide my email address directly in the chat and answer any questions you guys might have. Questions? What can students do to become more competitive internship candidates? So Thank you, Megan. So what you can do to be a more competitive candidate is you can connect with me for sure, and also get involved. Share your experiences, being very vocal about your experiences in terms of listing them on a resume is going to be key. Our application is not very difficult, but it is a little bit lengthy in terms of we really do a holistic overview. So you do have to apply for our intern for either DC or Sacramento. And so we look at a couple of different factors. Obviously, we look at the GPA component, as I mentioned, but it is not based on that entirely. It is also composed of your skill set, your experiences. So we have a resume that's part of it, which again, you will also use to repurpose when you are applying for the actual internships, because you first have to be admitted into the program and then the internship. So your resume is going to be key. So any experiences that you have, both academically, professionally, any previous research experience, any previous volunteership, all of that is going to really add value to your application and stand out and make you more competitive. As well as your letter of recommendation. You do have you have one letter of recommendation that is required of you for the program. And it can be from either an academic person reference, so either a professor or a counselor or somebody that can really kind of validate all of your skill set in and out of the classroom. And then we also have an unofficial transcript that we require as part of the application process, as well as the academic planning form, which if I go through it right now, I think it might be a little bit more confusing for some students. So I will say that for right now, what you could do to make yourself more competitive in applying is really hone in all of your skills on the resume, really refine that resume, utilize the mock, I think it was like VMock that one of my colleagues mentioned earlier in her presentation, to get that resume feedback, make sure it's nicely and polished and everything to submit. Any other questions? I do want to note that both the UCDC program specifically is a limited capacity, so not every single student will be admitted. So I do encourage you guys that if you are interested in learning more about it or in applying, please connect with me so I can make note of your name on my end, because it is a competitive academic program.